Hi, good day. Today I'm going to be looking at the solutions to the January 2021 paper question 1 and question 2. All right. All right, so this is question 1 here, right? What we want to do, they said using a calculator or otherwise, right? Now you have options in order to do this question. You can either use your calculator or otherwise, right? Now because time is going to be your enemy in this paper, right? I would suggest that you use your calculator. Most calculators can work fractions for us. But the key thing to remember here is the order in which we are doing our operations, right? So if you notice, we have plus 1 4/7 plus 2/3 minus 1 5/6, right? You guys need to remember this. The order in which we do operations are, so you may have seen this before, BODMAS, right? And that is brackets of division, multiplication, addition, and then subtraction. So we must do our addition first, right? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use a calculator that I typically use in my class, right? So 1 4/7, 1 4/7 plus 2/3, and that's going to give me, I'm going to write this as, so this is 47 over 21. So this here is 47 over 21 minus 1 5/6. Right? Again, I'm going to use the calculator to work that out. Alright, so that was 47 over 21 minus 1 5/6. 1 5/6. And I'm going to get 17 over 42. Right? So my answer here is 17 over 42. Right? In this part here, we have the thickness of one sheet of cardboard is 485 multiplied by 10 to the minus 2 millimeter. A construction worker uses 75 sheets of cardboard stacked together to insulate a wall. Show that the exact thickness of the insulation is 363.75. So you know the thickness of one sheet. So thickness of one sheet of the cardboard, right, is equal to 485 multiplied by 10 to the minus 2 millimeters. Now this really is given in standard form here. Now you want to know he's using 75 sheets, so therefore thickness of 75 sheets, so thickness of 75 sheets, right, is simply going to be 75 multiplied by 485 by 10 to the minus 2, right? Now, you're going to use your calculator to do this one. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say 75 multiply. Now, the problem with some students is that they don't know how to enter this information into the calculator. So you're going to press 485. Now there's a special key that allows us to enter exponents. So there's a key called EXP. So I'm going to press EXP. And all you need to do is to put 2 with a minus sign in front of it. And that actually means 485 multiplied by 10 to the minus 2. Right? And this is going to give me 363.75, which is what they asked us to prove. So this is 363.75 millimeters. Right? So this is so we showed this. This is what we're trying to show, and we did that. Now, write the thickness of the insulation. So this is typically a question that you would get as number 1, significant figures, decimal point, standard form. So it's 363.75. So that is 363.75. And we want to write that answer to 2 significant figures, right? If we have to write this to 2 significant figures, this is going to be 360, right? That's 2 significant figures here. The 3 and the 6 are significant, right? The next part here, you want to write that to 1 decimal place. So this is going to be 363.8 0.8. The reason why we have to use 0.8 is that the number right after the 7, it's 5, right? If that number is 5 or greater, we have to increase the 7 by 1. So that's why I'm getting 363.8. And then the last part, we want to express this in standard form. So we have 363.75, right? And you want to write that in standard form. So what we typically do, right? This number here is greater than 1. So I'm going to move my decimal place to the left. I'm going to go 1, 2 decimal places to the left. So then this is going to become 3.6375 multiplied by 10 to the power. Because I move to the left, I am going to have a positive exponent, but I move 2 decimal places to the left. So it's going to be 2. So my answer for this part here, part C, is going to be 3.6375 multiplied by 10 squared. All right. This next part here now, Marco is on vacation in the Caribbean and he changes 450 Mexican pesos to EC, Eastern Caribbean dollars, and he received 630, right? So they give us some information that allows us to do a conversion, and the question wants to know how much is 1 EC dollar equal to in Mexican pesos, right? Now when you have a question like this and you want to do a conversion, you're going to write your statement such that you want Mexican pesos on the right hand side, because that's what they're trying to find out. They're trying to find out how many Mexican pesos equivalent to 1 EC dollar. So what we're going to do, we're going to say 630 Eastern Caribbean dollars, right, is actually equivalent to 4,500 Mexican pesos. So that's MXN, right? Now we want to find out how much is one EC dollar. So 1 EC dollar, right? In order to figure that out, all we need to do is say 4,500 divided by 630, right? So again, I'm going to use my trusty calculator here. So that's 4,500 divided by 630, and I'm going to get 7.14, right? So this here is 7.14 Mexican pesos. So therefore, in order to complete the statement, all we need to do is to put 7.14 here, right? So that's part C, right? So that's the end of question 1 actually, right? So like most of you all know, I do give online classes, right? And that's maths, chemistry, and physics, right? This is my contact number here. You can always send me a WhatsApp if you're interested. The Form 5 class is currently in preparation mode for the June 2021 exam, right? So let's do question 2. So question 2 is a simple factorizing. So we want to factorize 12n squared minus 4mn. That's what you want to factorize. Now, in order to factorize this, the first thing we need to do, right, as we look at it, it doesn't look like a difference of 2 squares. So we're going to use the HCF method in this case here. So we have 12 and 4. Now the highest common factor is what we're going to determine. So you have 12 and you have 4, right? The factors of 12 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Factors are numbers that can go into something, right? The factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4. So the HCF is the highest common factor. So this here is my highest common factor. So I'm going to factor out 4. Next thing we're going to look at, we have n squared in the first term and we have 4mn in the next term, right? So the only thing common there is n. So in the first term we have n squared. The factors of n squared will be n and n squared. The 4mn, we need to find the factors of n. The only factor of n will be n. So therefore the HCF in this case here is going to be n. So I'm going to pull out n on the outside, open brackets. So you have to ask yourself, 4n multiplied by what will give me 12n squared? That will be 3n. You put back your minus sign, and therefore the only thing that's missing on this side here now is going to be m, right? So this is how we factorize this, and we factorize this using the HCF method. Now, part B now, the question is asking to show. Now you should like questions when they say show, because you know what the answer is. So I'm going to start off with x over 1 minus x, and I'm going to subtract 4x, right? Now, whenever you have a question like this, right? So we start with the left-hand side and we want to prove that the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. What I will typically do is to write this 4x as 4x over 1, because anything divided by 1, you're not going to change it. Now, what we're trying to do here now, we are adding two fractions, right? So we're going to add two fractions like we normally do. So this here is my denominator in my first fraction, and this is my denominator in the second fraction. So we have 1 minus x and we have 1. In this case here, my LCM is simply going to be 1 minus x. Now we're going to do this question just like we add or we subtract two fractions. So what we're going to do, we're going to say 1 minus x, that's this one here we're talking about, and we're going to divide it by this. 1 minus x, and I'm going to get 1. When I get that answer, I'm going to take that answer and I'm going to multiply by this x that is on top here. So this is going to give me x, because 1 by x is going to give me x. I'm going to write back my minus sign. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to take the same 1 minus x here, 1 minus x, and we're going to divide it by this 1 here. So when we divide that by 1, I'm going to get 1 minus x. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to take that answer and I have to multiply it by this 4x here. So that's going to be 4x multiplied by 1 minus x, right? So what we're going to do now, we're going to simplify. On the top, the numerator, this is going to be x, and we need to remove these brackets here. So we have to say minus 4x by 1, you're going to get minus 4x. Then we're going to say minus 4x by minus x, and that's going to give me plus 4x squared, right? All over 1 minus x. So we're not finished yet, so I don't have enough space here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come across on the side here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try to simplify that top part. So x minus 4x is going to give me minus 3x. So this is going to be 4x squared minus 3x divided by 1 minus x. Now we still haven't gotten this answers yet, but we're close. On the top part now, we're going to have to factorize. If we pull out x, right, if we factor out the x, then this is going to be 4x minus 3, close brackets, over 1 minus x, which is what they asked us to prove, right? So that's how we prove this here. Essentially what we are doing is subtracting two fractions, and we're going to get that answer there. The next one here, they said, hence solve this. Now, if you look at something here, this is what we were working with previously, right? So if you go back to this here, we had all of this on the left hand side equal all of that on the right hand side. So you ended up with x, open brackets, 4x minus 3, all over 1 minus x, right? That's what we had proved before. We had proved that this here is equal to x, open brackets, 4x minus 3 over 1 minus x. So we're going to put that equal to 0, right? Now, some students, they get a little confused when you have to solve a problem like this. But you need to remember certain things. 0 divided by any number is going to give me 0. However, any number divided by 0 is undefined, right? Is undefined. Now, according to this equation here, we have that equal to 0. The only way that can be equal to 0 is under this condition here. The numerator has to be equal to 0. So we can say x, open brackets, 4x minus 3 is equal to 0. And as it is right now, this is actually a quadratic function. So we can say either x is equal to 0, that's this first x here, or we have a second solution, which is 4x minus 3 is equal to 0. So 4x is equal to 3. And therefore x is equal to 3/4, right? So those are my two solutions here. X equals 0 and x is equal to 3/4. Then we have our next part here. We have changing the subject of the formula. So we have P is equal to 5 plus VT. And you're going to find the square root of that. But you want to make V the subject of the formula. So make sure in your mind you understand what they're asking for. They want V equal to something. That's what they're trying to find out here. So what I would do, I would write this over as 5 plus vt square root is equal to p. Notice I haven't changed any sign as yet. If you have the left hand side equal to the right hand side, that means that the right hand side is also equal to the left hand side. Anytime you have an expression that has square roots in it, we should square both sides. So when we square both sides, we're going to end up with 5 plus vt is equal to p squared, right? I'm squaring both sides in order to get rid of the square root sign. Then we're going to say vt is equal to p squared minus 5, and therefore v is equal to p squared minus 5 divided by t, right? So that's my answer there when I rearrange the formula. The next part here now has to do with variation. So this says the distance needed to stop a car, d, varies, so this is important to us, varies directly as the square of the speed. So what that means is that d is proportional to the square of my speed. So I'm translating these words here, right, into an expression. D is proportional to s squared. Now, that's a proportional sign, and we can't do anything with that. We need to change that into an equal sign. But what you need to remember is that when you change that to an equal sign, we must introduce a constant, which we call k. So therefore, d is equal to ks squared. And typically, CSEC will give us sufficient information in order to figure out what that k is. So the car is traveling at a speed of 70, and it requires a distance of 40 meters, right? So what that means is that my distance is equal to 40, and my speed is equal to 70. So we have some information we can use in order to figure out k. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say 40 is equal to k multiplied by s squared, right? So all I'm doing here is substituting information into this equation in order for me to figure out what the value of k is. So k is actually equal to 40 divided by 70 squared. So therefore k, I'm going to use my calculator again to work this out. So be careful with this. 40 divided by 70 squared, so you're going to press 70 and you need to square that, equal, and I'm going to get 0.00816. So you're getting 0.00816. I'm not going to round off my answer too early, right? Because the question is asking what is the distance required to stop a car traveling at 80 kilometers per hour. So this is my formula now. D is equal to, we know what k is. K is 0.00816 multiplied by s squared. That's my formula that I'm working with. But I know what the speed is, right? So I'm going to substitute. So my speed is equal to 80. So therefore, this is what we're working out. D is going to be equal to 0.00816 multiplied by 80 squared, right? And that's going to give me, so let's use our trusty calculator here. We already have k in the calculator. So that's multiplied by my speed squared, which is 80 squared. And I'm going to get 52.2. So this is going to give me 52.2. And that's distance we're working out here. So that distance has to be in meters, right? That distance has to be in meters, right? So that is the last part of question 2. And like I said, those of you interested in online maths classes, right? You can contact me at this number here, right? So take care, guys.